Hello and welcome to PE turned RE. I'm Curtis and I wanted to give you an update on the 75-day challenge I've been doing. It has been hectic, but the good news is now I finally have all my rental units filled, no vacancy. Long-term tenants are in place. They all paid on the first, so that's great news. I have also been busy meeting all sorts of investors in the real estate industry. Now that I've met those investors, the next few weeks I'll try to focus on the people kind of on the periphery of the real estate industry, such as accountants or lawyers or things like that. But let me focus on investors that I got to meet recently. We hear about different types of investing, and there's been two that I've got to really dive deep in of late. First one is STRs, or short term rentals. I got to go to a Seattle rooftop not too long ago, and there was all these people that do short term rentals are looking to get into that space. And it was really cool to kind of hear how their process is similar to a long term buy and hold, but their strategies are slightly different in who they market to and what type of properties that they need. Now, when I think short term rentals, I think vacation spots. I think places on the water. I think places with really cool amenities, hot tubs, pickleball court, basketball. I think of really outlandish types of Airbnbs, just mostly because that's, I think, what's in the media. However, I learned through conversation with people that are local here that not all Airbnbs need to be these lavish vacation ones. They can just be normal, run of the mill, kind of like a hotel, but as long as they're close to something that people may use, that's all that matters. So, for example, I have a property in Tacoma. It's not on the water. There's no great amenities. But after talking to these short-term rental experts, they were saying because it's close enough to the dome that concerts come through. There's events there, right? There's enough conventions that it could be a viable option for short-term rentals. Or also here in Lakewood, my triplex, it's near the base. So for folks that need like maybe a midterm option because they're contracted through the base, that I could offer that as an option here. So it really kind of opened my eyes to all the ways that I could increase cash flow if needed. Now, it is not all sunshine and rainbows. There is seems to be a little bit more of an upfront cost because not only do you have to make a unit rent ready, but you also have to furnish it. And obviously, so when you're in a service-based industry, which is what STRs and MTRs are, you want to make sure that the quality of material that you have there is good, right? So you can't just throw in a air mattress. You have to actually make sure that the bed is nice, the customers are comfortable in the space that they're in. And to me, that would be an area that I would have to grow, and it's kind of that design plan and knowing what materials to use in that sense. Not only is there more upfront costs, but also managing the turnovers because there's a lot more, right? Whereas with long term, hopefully there's never a turnover, but if there is, it's typically a few years apart, at least in my experience. With STRs, it could be every few days you have to go in, you have to clean the sheets, you have to make sure there's toilet paper, make sure all the stuff is nice again for the next person to come through. Also, managing that piece. Now, for me, I'd probably go coded locks and just tell them what the code is, so I don't have to transfer keys or be there when they are there. And in that short-term rental space, reviews are everything, right? You're kind of held at will by what the customer thinks of you. So those are the cons. However, the cash flow does seem to be a lot higher, or potentially higher. So that's something to think about if you're thinking of STRs. The other group of investors that I've only really kind of heard about, but they're kind of like mythical features because I had never actually seen them in action or in person. And fortunately, through my networking, I was able to meet someone that could connect me. And so last Friday, I actually got to go to the auction, and the auction is held at courthouses. And we actually got all the way there. We were on the stairs of the courthouse. Unfortunately, no actual house went for auction that day. They all got postponed. But in just being there and being around the people that play that type of game, I was able to learn what that process is. What is a postponement? What is a, I think they said, deferred, or what's going back to the bank, or what sales been canceled, or what all these different lingos mean. And then also kind of how does the foreclosure process work, how do things get to auction, once they are at the auction, how does one actually buy one at auction. Like, you need to have the cash right then. If you don't have proof of funds to buy it, you aren't going to get it. And so there was a hard money, like a lender there present, and you'd obviously have to be vetted by them the per- before you bought the property. But there is a process that you can go through that can get you approved for X amount of dollars. You can kind of tell them with what properties that you're trying to get. They'll be there at the auction to write the check for you. I think there is a fee that's like any broker's fee, that's like 3% of the sales price. So make sure you factor that into your numbers. And so while I was there, I kind of got to learn kind of how you buy it, what happens. Like, if you do buy it that day and it gets transferred to your name, to make sure you call your insurance broker, because now if anything happens to it, even that day, since it's now technically your property, that you are like liable. So let's say, example, you buy it in the morning, in the afternoon there's a fire. If you don't have insurance in process or already in place, well, now you are kind of screwed, because you have a property that's burned down without insurance. So kind of learned all those nuances. Also learned kind of how to do the math. The head guy that I talked to, he uses the kind of a 70% ish rule of thumb. He still runs every property's number, but he kind of uses that as a general rule of thumb. We use an example property where on paper it may sound like there's $100,000 worth of spread, but because of the rehab, because of soft costs such as like permitting or fees like carrying cost, or um, things like that, or appraisal fees or refinance fees, because of all these soft costs that happen during a transaction, that 100,000 that you thought you might make actually dwindled down, and we actually were paying money to buy the deal at the end. So that was a good little thought exercise that he had us work through. And so while I don't think I'm ready to buy at an auction or do a flip or do something like that, it was very useful to know how to go through that process, and also kind of learn who I could talk to about it if I ever did want to go through that process. So STRs and auctions are great investment tools if you know how to use them, and if you have the right people in your circles to help you coach you through it. If you ever decide to go through there, put in the comments down below, what type of investing strategy would you eventually like to try? For me, I would eventually like to try an auction or short-term rental. Thank you.